Okay, we're in section 3.4.1 of the notes. And what I'm trying to get across to students at Essex, and I've been doing this since Math 100, is that although this is optional material, it's in your interest to start using what's known as a computer algebra system. Right, the computer algebra system that I'm recommending is a system called SAGE. All right, we'll go through it. And as we go through this, if you had me in my prior courses, and I've done this in Math 100, 119, 120, 121, and now it's 122. So it's really, 5 separate classes now that this stuff is being introduced. All right, if you're familiar with this, great. If you're not familiar with it, you got to get familiar with it. One of the big complaints our students have when they transfer from Essex County College to a 4-year institution is they come back and they often say, well, gee, this is our better students, by the way. They come back and they say, gee, you didn't tell us anything about computer algebra systems. Well, I certainly talk about it with my students, but I realize other faculty members are not talking about it with their students, but I certainly talk about it. And I've actually mentioned it to faculty that we really should be encouraging our students to use a computer algebra system to get used to it. So when they transfer to a 4-year institution, they're able to use a computer algebra system. Now, if you go to NJIT, I'm sure there's a lot of users at NJIT that use SAGE, but NJIT has a commercial product called MATLAB. But the bottom line, what you learn here with SAGE will apply really to just about any computer algebra system. And as computer algebra systems tend to be a little bit tough to use. All right, so that's why we like to get your feet wet. So as time goes on, at least you're familiar with its use. All right. We're going to do what's known as the low bar introduction to SAGE math. This little magenta link over here, if you click on it, it's going to open up a website, and that website's going to open up is the SAGE website. All right. So I'm at the SAGE website. Now for students that really, I guess are actually not really literate with computer science, I do not suggest installing the software for you guys. Now, if you're a computer science major, installing the software should be relatively easy. But I'm really addressing those students that have a tough time working software. So I'm going to say CoCalc right over here is the easiest way to actually use a computer algebra system online. All right, or the SAGE computer algebra system. I'll click on that. It's going to launch something. I know I got a lot of files here. What I'm going to do is, your instance may look a little different than mine. This is my instance of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project here. All right, so I'm going to click on this link here. I'm going to get a product name. I'm going to call it intro. Call it whatever you want. Create project. All right, there's a little red banner at the top. They're asking me, could you sign up and could you pay $3 a month for this? That's why I don't like using online products. Because when you're using online products, what you're doing is you're actually using somebody else's computer. And I don't want to do that. So I'll talk about what I'm going to do instead. But right now, this is the low bar. No, you don't have to pay them $3 a month. But anyway, let's create a file or upload one. I'm going to create one. Now, what kind of file do I want to create? There's a lot of choices over here. What I want to do is just a SAGE worksheet. I click on this and it opens up. So once this is done, I got something that looks like a word processor. So you can type this stuff in like reset. I'm just looking at my notes, by the way. Now, when you hit the return button, nothing happens. So I'm going to communicate to you that you have to hit the shift and then the return button. And you're going to know something happens different. You're going to get this little green thing saying that they're doing something now. So I see that little green thing there and a little blinky green thing say they're working on it. The next thing, X equals var. What am I doing? I'm defining a variable. I'm just typing the code I see. Remember, shift return. Now what I'm going to do, f of x, this should look very familiar to you, is equal to, sorry about that, is equal to the opposite of the sign of x, shift return. An equal sign is an assignment operator. So for example, the first thing I said, x is a variable. I'm assigning to x the variable x. I'm assigning in the second thing I did, f of x equals the opposite of sign of x. Now someone's going to keep saying, what's that reset doing? It's giving me a clean slate to work on. It's like a clean sheet of paper. All right, I'm going to do g of x now. And what's g of x? Well, it's minus 2 star sine x, shift return. All right. So what have I done so far? I've defined a variable x, I've defined a function f, and I defined a function g. Now I'm going to say plot. Again, this is not a memorization. This is just you typing in what you're looking at. I'm going to type in, they got square brackets, means they got a list of functions. They're going to graph g and they're going to graph f. All right. And then what? I got to pull this over. They want the x to go between 0 and pi. Shift return. Now it's working, and then it graphs it out for me. Now I'm hoping that you're seeing that, and you can differentiate between, you know, the opposite of sine and the opposite of -2 sign on that interval. For example, the green curve is the opposite of sine. This blue curve over here is the opposite of -2 the sine. All right. What comes up next? Well, you know what? I know a lot of students get tired, and what they do is they copy and they paste. I'm going to do that now. Shift return. It's working. It says it's 2. Now someone says, that looks like a familiar problem. I wonder if we did that. So what I want to do is say, this code that we give you in the notes has something to do with what we're doing either in the lecture or the examples or the homework we're giving you. Now I'm going to say, this really does bring back a memory to me of the very first problem we introduced. And what was that problem? It's right over here. All right. So what I do, I said, compute the area between those two curves. What do we come up with? Well, we drew the picture, we put the integration down, we did the integration, and we found that is equal to number 2. I'm seeing that right over here. All right. I'm seeing it. Okay. I'm seeing it. Okay. So I'm going to say over there, I think I'm done with Sage, and this is probably the last time you're going to see me using CoCalc. Again, let me tell you why I don't like using CoCalc. Number one reason is I'm using somebody else's computer to do the computation. And when I'm doing that, I'm actually relying upon the generosity of other people to provide me things. And I don't like that. So what I did was I installed this on my computer. I am not telling you need to do that, but I want to do it. Right? So I've already installed it, and I'm going to just close this out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my installation of Sage on my computer. All right. So give me 1 second to do so. I run it from a terminal. I'm sure you see the Sage command over there. And I want to see if I can remember what I did. All right. And someone says, what do you mean? Can you remember what I just did? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with this, and I'm seeing this over here, and I'm going to type reset because I kind of remember doing that before. And I think you remember doing that too. All right. I'll type in reset. All right. Now what I'm going to do, X is a variable. Now remember, if I can't remember something, I can always go back and look at the code again, but I'm trying to learn. Okay, I got that. Now someone can say, what are you going to do now? Well, I want to do example number, well, not the number, it's on page 35. I'm going to define a function f of x, and I'm going to say it's x squared. Now, you notice I'm not saying shift return. I'm just hitting the return button. This is running on my machine. It's not web-based, it's running on my machine. Now I'm going to type in g of x. What's g of x? Let's see, it's x cubed, right? And now I'm going to plot, just like I did before. I can remember what I did. If you can't, you can always look at the code again. So what am I going to plot? F of x and g of x. And someone says, where are you going to plot them between? Well, I'm looking at it, and they want to go between -1 and 2. Now, I'm going to go a little bit further than that. I'm going to go -1.5 and 2.5. If you make a mistake, the machine's not going to blow up. But what happens over here? I got a graph. Now, someone's going to say, that doesn't help me at all. Well, it helps me. What do I notice? I got a green curve here. That's the cubic. And I got a blue curve over here, which is going to be the quadratic. Now, what I'm looking at is I'm kind of looking at, a point over here, and I'm going to say they intersect at 1. All right, I'm going to say they intersect at 1. So here comes the problem for a large number of students. They think a machine is going to answer the question for them. It doesn't. If you can't do things by hand, like we did in class when we went through the lecture, the machine will not help you. It's not going to help you. But what do I say? Between -1 and 1, it appears, looking at my picture, that the blue curve, the quadratic, is above the green curve. And then once I hit 1, it appears the green curve, the cubic, is above the quadratic. So what I'm going to do now is type in the integration. And we've done this one in class. I want to close these windows out. And what I'm going to do over here is type in my integration now. So integrate. Whoops. What I'm going to integrate? Well, the upper curve, which is x squared, minus the lower curve, which is x cubed. And I'm going to integrate with respect to x on the interval from -1 to 1. Okay, I'm going to hit the return button. If there's an error and you're going to come up with tons of error, you should look at the error code. All right. Now, I noticed it just simply spit it back to me. Right? Something's wrong. Do you notice what I typed in? It looks really weird to me. I didn't want that, did I? What did I want to do? I wanted to do f of x, which was x squared, right? Remember that? Minus g of x. On the interval, whoops, x from -1 to 1. And again, I'm trying to learn. I'm going to hit the return button. It says 2/3. All right. I'm going to hit the up arrow, and it's going to display that code again. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the next integration on. I'm getting a little better. What's the next integration going to be? Well, now the upper curve is g of x. G of x minus f of x. On the interval, for x goes from 1 to 2. Let's hit the return button. What does it say? 25/12. I'm hoping you're seeing that answer over here, 25/12. All right. I want to go back. I want to clear this out, CLEAR. This will do nothing to my problem. It just gives me a blank screen. The problem's still there. For example, if I type in f of x, it will display it for me. And what is it? X squared. All right. Didn't do anything to it. If I did reset though, oh, by the way, my pictures are not being drawn with Sage. They're being drawn with Grapher. And that's why they look different. All right. I actually like the quality of Grapher to the quality of Sage. But the bottom line is Sage is a very powerful tool. All right. So I'm going to go back to my code, and I'm trying to learn by looking at code. And again, I know people get anxious. They say, well, it's too much for me to do. It's optional. We're just trying to give you options. So when you do move forward, whether it to be NJIT or to another four-year institution, you're not going to be totally frightened by what they give you when they say you're required to use a computer algebra system. The one thing I like about NJIT, though, they demand their students use MATLAB. I would rather have to tell my students is you should use what you're comfortable using. So I use a variety of products, and some products I'm more comfortable than others, but the bottom line, I should be able to use what I want to use. I shouldn't be told what to use. All right. So what do we got to the Sage code? And what I'm going to do is going to type in the rest of the code now. All right. So I'm going to type in, let me clear. I'm going to type a new function in, h of x equals 20 plus x minus x squared. Gee, I had no error there. J of x, I'm just typing what I'm seeing, equals x squared minus 5x. I'm just typing exactly what I say. Oh my God, I got an error. So what am I saying over here? I'm looking at it. And I think, especially for students that are computer science majors, they often look at error messages. They're not very useful. It's actually pointing it out to me, though. And it's saying invalid syntax. What's the invalid syntax? In Sage, you must explicitly state that you're doing the multiplication. So let me go back over that, and it's 5 star x. Okay, now I'm going to solve j of x I'm sorry, not J of X, H of X, sorry. I think that read what I'm reading. Or, oh, I'm sorry, J of X, I didn't say 4 yet. And I want to solve it for X. And someone says, what are you doing over here? Well, if you paid attention during lecture, I was always wondering, what are the points of intersection between those two? So it says to between -2 and 5. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot. I think we've done this before, right? I'm going to plot, well, what am I going to plot? H of X and J of X. And I'm going to plot them on the interval X. Well, it says they go between -2 and 5, but I want to get a bigger window. So I'm going to say -2.5 and then 5.5. And I'm hoping I'm seeing something that's instructive. Now, granted, if you're looking at this and what you're looking at, well, maybe your skill set's not prepared for Calc 2. I got it. And what am I seeing? I'm seeing like that blue curve. So I wonder what that blue curve is. The blue curve is going to be the function. I got to look at myself. It's going to be H. And what's J? J is the lower function. I know the point of intersection. So I think I could read the next thing. I'll type it up for you. Integrate. What's the upper curve? H of X. That's the negative X squared problem. That goes down, right? Minus the lower curve, which was J of X, comma, X. And what am I going? My limits of integration? Well, the points of intersection will be -2 to 5. Hit return. And I got 343 over 3. Now, someone can say, that looks like a familiar problem too. So we're saying, is there a connection to our past or to your past? Like, did you do the homework? Did you pay attention? Who knows? We don't know. All right. I'm going to scroll back over. And I'm wondering if I'm going to see this eventually. Now, a lot of people get annoyed by scrolling back over. I said, do I need to go back? Well, you need to learn. That's for sure. All right. You need to learn. That's for sure. All right. I'm scrolling back. Scrolling back. Scrolling back. Whoa, I think it's this one right here. So let's say, did I do that problem in class? Yeah, I did. What did I tell you? I'm sorry about that. I find the area of the region enclosed by, 20 plus X minus X squared. Well, I'm using different notation. I didn't call it F. I called it something different. What did I call it? I called it H. And I called G. I called G J. Not much different to me. Anyway, I went through the process. I graphed it. I like my grapher better. And did I get the same answer? Yeah, look at this over here. Let me repeat this though. You will not be able to use a computer algebra system unless you know how to formulate a problem and do basic things by hand. This is important. You need to be able to do basic things by hand. This entire course is about teaching you basic things. As you move forward in mathematics though, you're going to find many, many examples where you know what the problem is. You can formulate it, but you can't do it. And the reason for that, the mathematics is way too difficult, but you know how to express the mathematics. That's where a computer algebra system becomes indispensable. And that's why you want to learn it. Every problem we do needs to be well understood before I go anywhere near a computer algebra system. So someone says, why are you doing a computer algebra system then? So when you guys move forward, you're not left in the dark. Again, students from Essex that go to NJIT often feel they're at a disadvantage because the NJIT students have a 2-year advantage of working with a computer algebra system. You want to start working with a computer algebra system. Even though the problems don't require it, you want to be able to do that. All right, I'm going to go to one other website. I know it's going to be a long lecture. Chances on Sage, we don't really want to talk too much about it. So I'm going to go back to my web browser. And I'm going to type in sage.mathography.org. I hope you can see that. So if you type that in, return, you're going to get a website that I designed that addresses the issue of Sage at Essex County College. I wrote a guidebook. You can click on this over here. The guidebook will open, no charge. You'll get a guidebook. All right. The guidebook, it's not a very long guidebook. I'll scroll to the end of it though. It's about 51 pages. That's not that long, right? Again, for some students, that almost seems like an endless amount of material. But what I claim over here is it really addresses, most of the computer algebra that you'd see at Essex County College. And what would that be? Your ability to use Sage as a calculator. That is for numerical purposes. If you keep scrolling through this, there's examples and there's exercises and there's answers to the exercises. You would see a section on integer division and factoring. Now, let me just kind of scroll forward a little tiny bit because I don't want to go through each section. But over here, you notice, I got calculus down. All right. So, when I get to page 21, they're talking about integrals. All right. Now, if you're taking like linear algebra or differential equations, this stuff would address it as well. So it really covers the tutorial, which is not very long, by the way, covers information, at least at the math level, that you're going to see at Essex County College. Will that prepare you to go to NJIT or another four-year institution and be successful there? Yes. You want to look at this stuff over here, but don't be overwhelmed, right? Don't be overwhelmed with this stuff, all right? I'm going to call it quits. And as I do the future lectures, oh, you know what? One other topic. Let me do that for you. What I want to talk about is this guy's Gregory Bard's website. My guide was 51 pages. Gregory Bard is a teacher at a different school. I teach at Essex. Gregory Bard teaches at a different school. I'm going to click on it. His page over here. This guy's been pretty nice, by the way, and I'll tell you why. He wrote a really big book, and the publisher, which is the American Mathematical Society, allowed him to actually publish a PDF copy right over here. I'm going to click on the color version. You notice it's downloading it. Once it's downloaded to my computer, it'll open on my computer. I do want to point out this guy's name is Gregory Bard, Department of Mathematics, Statistics, Computer Science at the University of Wisconsin. All right. So if you scroll to this over here, one thing I noticed is the copyright is 2010. It's an old book, by the way. It is. It's old. In computer science, this is like ancient. All right. 10 years, more than 10 years ago. It's ancient material. All right. So what are you doing over here? Again, you could scroll through this and it's not going to get you too far scrolling through it, but he's got like a table of content, just like my notes have tables of content. And a lot of content in the thing over here. Now remember, my book's 51 pages long. His book, let's keep scrolling. I'm just a table of contents, by the way. Well over 300 pages. It's 6 times the size of my book. 6 times the size of it. All right. Does he cover a lot of stuff? Yes. In more detail than I do? Yes. My 51-page guide, though, is more than enough for you to get started with a computer algebra system. It's a really short tutorial, which is structured so it's not a tremendous amount of reading. All right. So I'm going to call it quits. And we come back, future, we're not going to be talking too much about, the nuances here of getting books and things like that. But the first one, it was longer. I know that.